Hey there, I'm Tyler Esselman.
And I'm Michael Osinski.
And this is...
This One Goes to 11.
This One Goes to 11, a podcast. What kind of podcast is it, Michael?
It's a music podcast. It's a podcast where we invite a guest of our choosing to come on and share an album with us. But not just any album, an album that they consider to be perfect.
So perfect, in fact, that 10 out of 10 just isn't good enough.
Hence the title, This One Goes to 11. Also a Spinal Tap reference. Totally a Spinal Tap reference. Did you hear they're going to make another Spinal Tap movie?
I did, and it sounds like all the originals are involved, so I'm happy.
Yeah, we're on board. We're on board here.
I'm on board with that. I'm not on board with every unnecessary sequel, but this one I'm on board with.
Yeah, this feels necessary and deserved.
Right, we need this. This is what we need. Well, this is a very special Father's Day episode.
A very special episode, yes. And why? What makes it so special, Tyler? Tell us, who is our guest this week?
Well, this guest it's a special Father's Day episode because this guest is my father, my dad, Paul Esselman. It's a little wild. It's a little wild to be sharing something like this with him, but I'm glad we did. It was a really fun one. For those of you who don't know my dad is Paul Esselman. He was born in the sleepy hamlet of Perryville, Missouri, but he grew up in Quincy, Illinois, where he was one of 8 children reared by my grandparents, Rita and Eugene. He graduated from Southern Illinois University at Carbondale and worked for many years in the pharmaceutical and healthcare fields. He sold stuff, he marketed stuff, and most recently, he recruited people. My dad's a curious guy and an autodidact of the highest order. He works wood, he landscapes, he gardens, he fishes, and him and my stepmom, Suzanne, make the smoothest barrel-aged Manhattans this side of the Mississippi. But really the biggest thing for my dad is family. That's the thing that he holds closest to his heart. And as big as the Esselman brood might be, he's always thinking about a way to bring us together for whatever occasion is a good excuse. And I don't know, if you know me, you know that he's my hero. I love my dad, and I'm really excited to share this one with you all. And it's also the first time that one of our guests has been in person with us. So that is a very great new place for us to enter as a podcast, right, Michael?
Yeah, well, half of us. I wasn't able to fly to Missouri to join you, but it's like one step closer, right? We're like one step closer.
We're getting there.
And I enjoyed this talking to you and your dad about an album, which I will not reveal. I will wait till he reveals it, even though anyone who's listening to this episode already knows what it is. It's sort of like the weird thing, isn't it? The fact that like anyone who clicks on one of our episodes know which album we're going to cover that we never talk. Right. We make the person introduce it like it's some big surprise. I don't know.
Right, but the suspense is necessary.
Yeah, exactly. This is a good one though. A good concert story. And also like this album also feels a little bit like kind of a tribute to one of the band members. We talk about that a lot in this episode. Anything else our listeners should know, Tyler?
My dad and we get silly together, so thank you for humoring us. Yeah, thank you for humoring all of our silliness.
There was drinking in this episode, dear listeners. I can assure you I saw them. I did not have a beverage, but I felt like I was drinking along with them.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Good drink.
Yeah.
It's good drinking listening,
not
within reason.
Yeah.
No, not at all.
Yeah. Well, why don't let's end the suspense. Let's give our listeners a taste.
Hey, Dad.
Hey, how you doing, buddy?
It's good. Well, Paul Esselman, and that's the last time I'll say both of those names together, probably because it feels weird to say when you're sitting in front of me. Welcome to This One Goes to 11.
I am honored, Michael. It's good to see you.
Good to see you. Yeah, you are. I believe. I think you're officially friend of the pod. Capital F, capital P.
I am a friend of the pod, and I think I am your oldest guest so far. I think.
Oh, you think?
I think thus far. I think maybe. Yeah.
I'm digging it.
This is a big moment for the pod. We're breaking into in-person in-person interviewing because I am sitting right next to you on this big comfy couch.
This big comfy couch.
In Fenton, Missouri. So I wish you were here with us, Michael. That would
I
make
know.
it all the better.
I can't wait for the day. Whenever we're in the same city, we're gonna schedule like 9 episodes in a row. Like while we're in the same city, so we can actually record together.
Yeah, a marathon of recording. It'll be totally worth it.
Or ordering lunch.
Yeah.
I'll check the budget. We'll get our admin on that.
But thanks for coming on, Dad. This is I'm really excited about it. I've been looking forward to it
me too. It's gonna be fun.
This is pretty cool. Why don't you do us a favor and introduce the band that you will be bringing, the band and the album of theirs that you'll be bringing before This One Goes to 11 Tribunal today.
Absolutely. I was concerned some of your other guests would snag it up before I would ever get a chance to talk to you guys, and nobody has. So it's the Foo Fighters, and it is Wasting Light. So
Wasting Light.
They are
2011.
2011. A lot of history behind that album, and they are my. If Foo Fighters comes on, I crank it up. I turn other stuff off. They are the band that I listen to the most.
It's a strong choice in their body of work. I think most Foo Fighters fans would probably present one of their earlier albums as their perfect albums, right, Michael?
I will admit, I mean, while I enjoy this album, the first album I would always think of with Foo Fighters would be The Color and the Shape, would be the one that I would immediately think of as their sort of trademark definitive album.
So you've set a challenge for yourself.
That's okay. I'm up for the challenge, and I am. I love all Foo Fighters work, but this one resonates with me for a variety of reasons. I'm not sure we'll get into that. So I'm excited.
Yeah, but I got some work to do before we dive in. Right? It's my turn this week, Tyler.
It is your turn this week for everyone's favorite segment on This One Goes to 11, the beginner's guide to the Foo Fighters and Wasting Light in 60 seconds.
I've been waiting for this.
Okay,
no pressure.
Michael, are you ready? 60 seconds are on the clock.
I'm ready.
All right, ready? 3, 2, 1, and go.
Were you alive in the mid-90s? Chances are you associate Foo Fighters with Mentos, the fresh maker, and the band's cheeky music video for the song Big Me. But did you know that song, like the entire first Foo Fighters album, was recorded by one person, rock music journeyman and Nirvana drummer Dave Grohl. Grohl formed Foo Fighters in 1994 after the dissolution of Nirvana. Though largely inspired by Cobain's songwriting, Grohl and Foo Fighters would help define the post-grunge sound of the late 90s and beyond, winning 15 Grammys and being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2021. Their 7th album, 2011's Wasting Light, debuted at number 1 on the Billboard album chart, was produced by Butch Vig, who you may have heard of, member of the band Garbage. He produced Nirvana's Nevermind. And it was recorded in Grohl's garage with all analog equipment. Since Wasting Light, they've done a lot, including releasing their own comedy horror film, Studio 666, earlier this year, but the band is currently mourning the recent death of drummer Taylor Hawkins. Rest in peace, and rock on, sir.
Excellent. There it is. Oh, that's the alarm you use.
That's the alarm.
That's your choice. Damn, buddy. That was good. That was good.
Thanks. I had to, on the fly, I also had a thing in there about the throne that Dave Grohl built when he injured his leg, when he had to perform with a throne, which they've like rented out to people, other bands, I think. Like other bands have used it. But I wanted to make sure we got Taylor Hawkins in there for the end. So
you got to.
There we go.
Dad.
Yes.
If you had to rate Michael recapping Foo Fighters in general, Dave Grohl, and this album in particular in the context, what would you say? How would you say he did? How would you rate him in your own words, in your own expression?
Well, he was excellent because he nailed many of the aspects that I think are really important to me about the Foo Fighters. And you know how important my Manhattans are. So if I go from a 1 to 5 Manhattans, I'd give you 5.5 Manhattans.
5.5.
Oh, wow. Pretty impressed. Yeah.
So I'd be wasted is what you're saying.
You really would be.
Well, you'd be wasted after 1.5, but yes, this was excellent. Nicely done.
For those of you who have ever visited my dad and my stepmom Suzanne in Fenton, you know their barrel-aged Manhattans are pretty dangerous. And so 5.5 is beyond a good night. That's dangerous.
I'm on the floor, basically. Yeah.
So would I. So would I be. Let's zoom out a little bit right now, and let's talk about like your relationship with music in general. What role would you say music plays in your life on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, it's a good question because I've listened to a lot of your other guests talk about that, and my relationship with music has changed significantly as I've gotten older. As you know, but Michael, I grew up in a very conservative Midwest town in central Illinois. You had, at that time, probably a choice of 3 radio stations. One was early talk, one was pop, and the other one was country. And, for a kid that was always driving around with his parents, and we had the AM station, which was the Cardinals.
Baseball, yeah.
So there wasn't a lot of music for me. We didn't listen to a lot of music in my family. My parents, we didn't play records unless it was Christmas time. So I pretty much went through pretty much all of early grade school, maybe occasionally hearing the radio, but it was only if I was in the car with one of my oldest brothers. It was probably not until I got into high school and I got a few dances, and there was the early Foreigner and Journey and all that shticky stuff, and you were just waiting for the slow dance.
Did you think it was shticky at the time? Was that something you felt at the time?
No. It was very important. I mean, I knew what song I was waiting for to get the dance, and we didn't fast dance, and it was
sure.
So really I didn't discover music until late high school and then early college. And in college, I was exposed to a lot of rock, a lot of hair metal, and the hair bands, metal. I really enjoyed
like Van Halen and those kind of things.
Van Halen was one of my first ones. I can tell you Dire Straits, Van Halen, and then of course we had Rat and Poison. I listened to a lot of Quiet Riot. And these were early freshman, sophomore years of college. And I remember driving out to my off campus, and we would, my buddies and I we would rock out to Whitesnake and Quiet Riot and Come On, Hear the Noise. And I'm driving my 1972 Ford Maverick, and I have to tell you, that was a sweet car. And it was awesome. It was awesome.
Did you go to concerts on campus? Did you ever do that?
No. We in our family, no, we did not go to concerts. I did not go to concert. I did not go to a concert until I was a senior in college. I was at Southern Illinois University, Carbondale.
Go Salukis.
And Eddie Money was my second concert. Pat Benatar and Mr. was my first concert at the Kiel Auditorium, and I remember driving up from Carbondale to go to that concert, and it was totally badass.
That's cool.
My second concert was Eddie Money, also when I was in Carbondale. He was drunk. He fell off the stage. I thought that was pretty cool. I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah.
That makes sense.
I have to give some credit to my early interest in music, though, came from one of my brothers, my brother Ed, and he's probably, I think he's about 20 years older than me, but really he's probably only 6 years older than me, but I give him hell. He had a record player in his room. Yeah. He never wanted me to touch his records. I would get hit and beat up if I touched his records, but he had some records. He had Rush.
Oh yeah.
He had ELO, and he had a record by Amy Stewart. And it was the song that I would play as soon as he left. You guys should look it up. As soon as he left for work, it was Knock on Wood. And this had some serious, I'd play it for you right now, but it had some serious drum action.
Really?
And it just had a beat. And it is the first time I learned about how you blow a speaker. And
no way.
My parents weren't in the house. And I put on this record, and I cranked it up. And this was an old record player, and I had it up as loud as I could. So maybe I was actually way ahead of your time. That I was actually trying to go to 11. The thing only went to 10. I cranked it up so high that all of a sudden the sound changed, and I thought, well, that's not good.
Yeah.
And what I found out after I was accused and beat on and all of that is I turned it up so loud I blew his speaker.
Well, I think you need some points for that.
Yeah.
I think you get 1,100 points for blowing up Uncle Ed's speaker.
I'm assuming since you didn't go to concerts, you also did not dress or look like any of the people in these
No.
bands. Did you, or
Oh,
you weren't sporting
no,
any long hair and
nope, no. Remember, what was it? Family Ties, Alex P. Keaton.
yes.
Remember? Yeah. Well, that's what I was picked on. That I looked like Alex P. Keaton in
Yeah.
high school and grade school. I was just very conservative, and so he gave me one of my first starts of listening to his albums that he had in his room.
Is
And
that record, is that 2112 vinyl that you gave me? Was that Uncle Ed's originally?
that's his original.
Ooh,
Yeah,
I still got it.
Oh,
you still
wow.
got it.
Okay.
The other thing is that he would he had an 8-track player in his car, and he would play John Denver, and so
yeah.
I got introduced to John Denver, and the 8-track would skip, and he had a half of a clothespin that he'd had to stick in the side of the 8-track just to keep it in line, and he would play John Denver. So, and but to this day, I give him a lot of credit because he did give me my start in music. So yeah.
It just reminds me too, like, just I remember my mother buying the Whitesnake cassette tape because she liked the song "Here I Go Again."
Yeah.
But then when she got the whole tape, she was like, "I don't think I want to listen to anything else but that one song."
The rest makes me uncomfortable.
But and then if she showed the video of Tawny Katane on the hood of that car, and
Well, I will say MTV did play a lot in my house, primarily because I was the one who had it on. Because my parents do. I grew up with Martha Quinn, early VJ on MTV,
Oh, yeah.
essentially.
Yeah.
Martha Quinn,
Yeah.
a good friend of mine. I watched her as much as I watched Sesame Street, pretty much. So that's
Yeah.
the sort of.
That's why you are the way you are.
I mean, it's the Trent Reznor at a PTA meeting. That's my aesthetic. So
Absolutely.
College is when I really was introduced to MTV. I
Mhm.
mean, we didn't have that. We didn't have that at our house. I mean, we had 3 channels, and we didn't have that at our house. And so, college, when we went to college, it was MTV, and I got introduced to some of that and some of the VJs, and that was the best. That was absolutely the best.
You're pretty tech savvy, I would say, and so you use Spotify. Hey, Spotify. You use Spotify. You send me music a lot. So, like, what about nowadays would you say is your relationship with music?
It's primarily where I get all my entertainment. I mean, I listen to music in the car. Other than this podcast, just for what it's worth, I don't listen to many podcasts. I listen to music at the gym, and it still varies. Now with Spotify, and I know some of your other guests have said this, that you can pick your songs and jump around.
Mm-hmm.
But I still listen to that wide variety. I listen to probably as equal amount of country as I do rock. But then I always seem to go back to those that the Foo Fighters and others that have always been my mainstays. Michael, I have to say, you have the Nirvana shirt on, and I was not a Nirvana fan. And
let's dig into that. Why not?
Well, tell you what, like, is it? Well, they're not. They don't really sound the same, frankly. Nirvana and Foo Fighters, like, there's some stark differences between them, I think.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan back then. I am a huge fan now. I'll tell you the reason why is because Tyler and his sister Lauren, when Nirvana was coming up and out, and I had little kids, and I wasn't playing that kind of music in the car with the kids in the car. It just wasn't something that I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And probably if I'm completely honest, I looked at Kurt Cobain and Dave Grohl, and being the conservative Midwesterner, I saw that, and that whole grunge, that West Coast or Northwest grunge. I thought they were dirty,
good for nothing,
dirty pot smoking, good for nothings. And I thought these guys are, what the hell is this grunge stuff? Probably what I thought about early punk. I just couldn't wrap my head around it, and I didn't appreciate it, and I didn't have time to listen to it because of the environment I was in, with kids.
The 90s was just a blur.
The 90s was a blur. And I'm catching up. But as I've gotten older, I just appreciate the lyrics probably the most. The beats always have resonated with me, but now that I'm a big lyrics fan, and I go back and I listen, I read lyrics. It's one reason why I like Spotify, is that I can punch the lyrics up and listen to what they're actually saying. So I like that. So I'm a big Nirvana fan, and I think I might even have a Nirvana T-shirt that my wife got me.
I have a better one than this. This is the one that essentially everyone at Target bought. When I see that, I will say, okay, now I'm going to age myself too here, but like when I see teenagers walking around with their Nirvana shirts on that they got at Target, I'm like, you don't understand. You don't know what this is all about. Like, you weren't there.
Yeah, they're bandwagon. They're just jumping on the bandwagon. You were the
exactly.
original. You were the original cool guy.
Thank you, Paul.
Yeah,
thank you. Thank you for the
go.
validation. Well, how did you come to discover this particular album? I mean, and the Foo Fighters in general, I guess.
I've enjoyed their beats ever since they came out. I've enjoyed the rhythm, the
rhythmic element.
Yeah, not really listening to the words. Early on, when I was, late 90s, I wasn't really thinking about their words. I could sing several of their songs because I knew their words, but I wasn't listening to the words or really thinking about the words. And my reference to the whole grunge look and what are they about?
The aesthetic.
Yeah, I was in the American Airlines club, whatever that is, the whatever they call it, the Ambassador Club or whatever at LAX.
You were selling pharmaceuticals at the time. Let's be real.
Yeah,
that's what you were doing.
I was in pharmaceuticals.
You couldn't have been further from the grunge movement, and that's no problem.
No, exactly. I was the blue suit. You had to wear a blue suit, white shirt, and maroon tie. That was what. If you wore a tie any other color, you might get in trouble with the boss. But I was in the American Airlines Admirals Club at LAX, and in walks Dave Grohl, and I knew Dave Grohl because I had already watched. I had already, MTV, and I had listened to their music. But to this day, I'll never forget. He is walking along, and at those Admirals clubs back in the day. Now they have a whole smorgasbord, but back in the day they have some fruit, and then they'd have the Chex Mix, the party mix, and you took it and you filled up your little plastic cup. And he walks over with his daughter, and they fill up a couple plastic cups, and they turn around, and this is literally right in front of me. I'm sitting there trying to mind my own business, not look at Dave, but I'm looking at Dave because he's a big star, and his daughter spills the cup, just drops the whole damn cup on the floor. And this has stuck with me, and it impressed me, and I started listening to him even more because he stooped down with his daughter, and they picked up everything that she spilled. And he went and he threw it away, and he got her another cup. And, for me, here's a guy that, was a grunge, and he's got his long hair and he's got his tattoo, and I can't get my hair short enough, and I have no tattoos, but here's a guy that was in that grunge stuff. And I can only imagine like a Kardashian now would just probably, have one of their servants pick it up. But Dave bent down and picked it up. Sorry.
Shading the Kardashians on our podcast.
I'm going to get, dang, I got ding. And to that day, since that day, I have thought of him as, well, he's just a dad. He's just a dad that taking care of his daughter and getting the Chex Mix and doing their thing. I really, probably shortly after that, I really started diving into their music more, and I researched them, and I bought CDs. I bought their CDs, and this album has been one of my favorites from the first time I listened to it. And one of the reasons, and I'll make an argument that this album was one of my favorites at the time, but it has lasted throughout the years. I have favorites on there that have been my favorites from the very first, but throughout the years, others have hit me in different ways. As I've gotten older, as I've gone through things with family and work and this and that. And that's where I start to get into their lyrics and just learning more about them. So I loved it at the beginning, but I like it for different reasons now.
Well, I think he's cultivated that, when it's somebody this famous, and I think Dave Grohl he's on another level of celebrity. as far as I can tell. And for somebody to have cultivated this image of being good guy Dave Grohl, which I think he really has, you can't tell if it's conscious or not, if it's something that's really calculated, but it doesn't really feel like it is. And so that goes a long way. It just feels like who he really is.
Yeah.
That it's not some his publicist is telling him he needs to really work on being a good guy, because that's the image that the public has of you. It all feels like it really comes from his heart.
I think that the argument that he is a good guy could also be further supported by the fact that he's collaborated with so many musicians. I mean, I feel like if he played drums on a Nine Inch Nails album. I'm pretty sure he played drums on the Queens of the Stone Age album. I think he played on Songs for the Deaf. They formed that band, Them Crooked Vultures, with Josh Homme.
Underrated, I would say.
Very good. So I mean, if people who collaborate a lot, I mean, they must be good to work with, because you're not going to work with a dick, right? Like, I mean, if you're a good person and you're talented. I used to joke that when everyone would be doing like fantasy football and they'd be drafting their teams, like, I want to create a game called Fantasy Rock Band, and I believe the number one draft pick in a fantasy rock band game would be Dave Grohl, because he plays so many different instruments.
Absolutely.
And he seems like he's just good to work with. And I think Trent Reznor will be number 2, but that's just my theory.
Let's connect a few dots here. If I'm not mistaken, when I was looking at your yearbook many years ago, that the album of your senior year was Purple Rain.
Heck yeah.
An excellent album that we talked about last year.
Yep.
Last season. And there's a great story. I don't know if I sent this to you, but there's a great story about Dave Grohl playing with Prince, where he was just like, I think Prince had him out during a sound check or something like that. Have you heard this one, Michael?
No, I haven't heard this.
Prince was like, "Hey, Dave Grohl, come on out and, do the sound check with me. Let's jam a little bit." And he was just like keeping up. Yeah. He was just keeping up with Prince. And somebody who I think there's a confidence about Dave Grohl that makes him really appealing too, because he doesn't feel really like he has to impress anyone. He is so secure in his artistry, and he's so secure in the things that he's putting out in the world, that he can keep up with anyone, including Prince. And it's great because he was like, I'm just kind of shitting my pants because I'm playing drums for Prince. And afterwards, I guess they jammed for a little while during the sound check for the show, and then Prince just kind of nods at the end, like gives him a silent seal of approval. And if Prince is doing that for you, it's a pretty good sign, probably.
The crazy thing is, there is a cover of My Darling Nikki, that the Foo Fighters have done, and I heard it. It was either at one of the award shows, and they did this cover of My Darling Nikki. But I have to tell you, it was mind-blowing, because I was a Prince fan. Dave Grohl and the Foo Fighters were my band of all time, and they meshed the two, and I thought, holy crap. So maybe put this all out to your listeners to find me that video or that track of My Darling Nikki by the Foo Fighters. It was badass. It was totally badass. And you can just imagine the way they jammed on that. It was great.
Yeah. I love when there's like a perfect collaboration. I don't know if you've ever seen, I can't remember what the occasion was, but when Heart covered Stairway to Heaven, I think it was for some award show.
Yeah.
And to hear, to hear them I think it like brought Jimmy Page and I don't know if both Jimmy Page and Robert Plant were there, but I think they were kind of brought to tears by it, because it's just ridiculous. It was
the Kennedy. I think it was the Kennedy. It was
That's
either
right.
the Kennedy honors. Yeah. And you could see them misting up. And I have seen Heart in concert at the Washington in Washington, Missouri.
Washington, Missouri.
Yeah. So wait, you saw Pat Benatar and you saw Heart. He needs points, Tyler.
Okay. I'm also, for the listeners, I'm trying this new thing where I keep track of the points without interrupting the conversation. So he got a ton of points on the board. Let's talk about what you think your standout track is from Wasting Light.
Yeah.
And you chose what?
I chose A Walk.
The last album the last song on the album.
The last song on the album. Yeah. It is the one that I immediately jumped to when I heard it. I have, anytime it comes on, it's sort of like when you're flipping through the channels and you see an old movie and you stop everything you're doing and you're watching. You stop and watch the movie on a Saturday afternoon. A Walk comes on. I stop I turn it up. I I drive faster in the car. Unfortunately, I share it. But I'll tell you, when I first heard it, it had no significant meaning to me other than the rhythm, the beat, just the I mean,
the drive.
Yeah, just the absolute drive. I mean, it's a great song to run to lift to do anything to. However, when the more I listened to it, and then I started really listening to the words, what I really liked is that it has a lot about, and Dave has talked about this, Dave Grohl has talked about this, that it's a lot about rebounding and turning things around and surviving and getting better, and you can do this, and you can get through this. There are many times when I would be preparing for a big meeting or going on a trip where I had to give a presentation. It's my psych up song. I listen to it and I turn it up as loud as possible. I think I've sent it to you and your sister probably more times than I can even count. And you're probably like, "Oh, geez, Dad's sending Walk again."
No, I never get tired of it.
But it is
pretty great.
If you, for any of your listeners that haven't listened to it, and I probably not a lot, but if you haven't listened to it, get in a car, turn it on, and then wait for the hook to come, because that's when you really want to turn it up, and it motivates you. To me, it just motivates me, makes me feel good. So it's my favorite of all of them. It's been my favorite consistently since I first discovered this album.
You never have to stop yourself from sending it to me, because it's not, I'll never say no to a reminder that this song exists. And I think it's a song that I have shared this sort of sensation with other people in my life before, where, sometimes a song comes on that you associate with particular, emotional states in your life or particular memories. And it's almost like your heart starts beating faster when you hear the beginning of the song. And it's almost kind of overwhelming to the point where you can't listen to it all the time, because the emotional memory of it's too intense.
Yeah.
And that's sort of, to be honest with you, that's sort of how Walk is for me now, because by the time it gets to the end of the song, and at the very end, he's saying, "I never want to die. I never want to die. I'm on my knees. I never want to die."
Mm-hmm.
Makes me think of you, because I can imagine you've told me about you using this in the car when you're heading into work some morning when you're really feeling burnt out. And it's, it chokes me up. It chokes me up every time I hear it.
I think this is a perfect song for what I think Foo Fighters represents, is that when you start listening to a Foo Fighters song for the very first time, you have no idea where it's going to go. You're right. It's emotional at first. He's kind of talking to you, and then all of a sudden he gets pissed off, or he gets, maybe not pissed off is the phrase to say, but maybe, he gets indignant, and he's determined. He's never going to die, and he's just going to, by God, I'm going to just put my head down, and I'm just going to get through it. Just got to get through it. Put your head down and get through it.
Just got to get through it. Is my dad's catchphrase.
It is.
Just got to
get through it. Dave Grohl described this, and I want to make sure I get this quote right, but he wanted to compose, and he said, the tightest, catchiest 4.5 minute softball bat to the face songs. And I thought, I don't know why a softball bat versus a baseball bat. Maybe there's a difference, but maybe a baseball bat hurts more than a softball bat. So you don't want to crush your skull, but
it doesn't want to kill him. Just wants to remember.
Wake you up. Yeah. Hey, I'm here. I'm going to wake your ass up.
Well, why don't we listen to Walk, and then we'll talk more on the other side.
Do it.
That's the end of part 1. If you access this episode via our YouTube playlist, you're about to hear our guest's standout track. If you'd like to jump ahead to part 2, you'll find a link in the description of this episode.